All right, Travis, talk to me about this bill. This is essentially criminalizing religious beliefs, and I don't mean to speak in hyperbole here, but if this bill were to pass, would this prohibit the sale of the Bible that teaches these things about sexual morality?
Well, literally, according to how this law is written, yes, it would. This is, PC culture, politically correct culture, gone horribly awry. This is really directly hitting at our First Amendment rights as American citizens. Now the Democrat legislators in this building right behind me, the California State Legislature, they want to tell you how to think, what sort of books that you can read, write, and purchase. It is completely wrong. It is absolutely against our First Amendment rights, and I, for one, will be a vocal opponent against this if it ever hits the assembly floor.
Right. I mean, some of the phrasing here, I read it in the introduction. I want to read it again. They say this includes efforts to change behaviors. I mean, that is the role of parents, to guide their children's behaviors. If they are not allowed to guide their children's behaviors with their religious beliefs, then what rights do parents even have in the state of California?
Which is exactly right. I mean, this is what the Democrats are trying to do in California. This is how bad it's gotten, how far away the California Democrat Party's actually gotten away from even just normal Democrats here in the state of California. They want to tell people how to think, what sort of books they can read, what books they can't read. Remember, this country is founded upon the freedom of expression, and now the California Democrats want to take even that away.
Right, and tell me, I mean, you're in the assembly, you work with these people, I know you respect your colleagues, but who is behind this?
This is the whole liberal agenda. I mean, this is what they've been trying to do now for decades, literally in California. It's just gotten so bad because no one's been able to stop the Democrats in California that now their true designs are really starting to show themselves. This is all of the Bay Area liberal elite groupthink that we're now seeing in the chamber behind me. Remember, the California legislature has been run for 39 of the last 40 years by the Democrats in California. They have super majorities in both the Senate and the Assembly. It was only broken recently by their own expulsions over sexual harassment allegations. So, I mean, look, it's not as if these guys are a clean house. These guys have been trying to do this for a long, long time. It started out with, this whole concept of politically correct speech, which, thank God, has been blown out of the water by our president, Donald J. Trump. Now they want to tell you not only, what is it polite to say, but here's what you actually can say, what you can't say. Here's the sorts of books you can read and can't read. And by the way, as this bill is written, it would be banning the Bible in California.
Right, and there is some irony, by the way. I want to go back to that point you made. There is some irony that the same party who lost their majority because of sexual immorality wants to ban books that are guidelines on sexual morality.
Actually ban some Christian books is working its way through the California State Assembly. Sponsors of Assembly Bill 2943 actually want to outlaw books that basically teach against homosexuality and gender identity. SaveCalifornia.com's Randy Thomason joins us now for the latest on this legislation. Randy, thanks for joining us.
Yes.
So tell us more about this bill. I mean, it sounds like a stretch even for California, a bill attacking free speech and freedom of religion?
There's 8 homosexual legislators, Democrats, all of them, who are sponsoring this bill. And AB 2943 would start by saying, okay, nobody can get counseling to overcome same-sex desires, okay? So no help for adult children, adults who were molested as kids, and now they're adults, and they say, I want help to overcome these feelings. No help for you. But because the bill is actually written in a part of the law that deals with consumer complaints, it actually says no goods or services can be sold for anything, any practice. It's very vague, very broad. Anything helping people overcome same-sex desires. So this is a pastor who's speaking. You pay a ticket to hear him speak. He speaks about overcoming same-sex desires. Hey, that could be outlawed. A church sells a book about overcoming same-sex desires. Well, there's a sale, it's a transaction. That could be banned. So this is very expansive, very tyrannical, and absolutely squashing free speech, religious freedom, and basic choice of people. This is an anti-freedom,
Downloading unauthorized versions of the Bible is now an offense in China. Internet users there have noticed that with other Christian books, the Bible is unavailable from online shopping websites such as Amazon China, Taobao, and JD.com. According to state media, these companies face penalties for selling publications which they say adversely affect society. The move comes as Beijing is promoting a new report looking at religious life.
Debate on
in
religious
China.
diversity has come to a head in Britain, in a British university where students have decided to throw the Bible out of their dorms. Well, students at Aberystwyth University, they feel the inclusion of the Holy Book in bedrooms is inappropriate in a multicultural environment. Almost 300 voted for the move. But the head of the university's Catholic Society doubts the decision will actually promote multiculturalism. Well, Aberystwyth University is just the latest in a string of cases when the Bible has fallen prey to multiculturalism across Europe. So one of Britain's largest hotel chains actually decided to remove all of its Bibles from its hotel rooms in order not to discriminate any religion at all. Well, the words Jesus and Christ have been banned as offensive by Marks and Spencer's on its online gift messages. The retailer later had to apologise. Ben Harris-Quinney, who is a founder of a conservative think tank, thinks such cases could mark some serious consequences for the country as a whole. EU authorities also point at growing hostility and violence toward Christians in recent years that largely passes unnoticed by. Debate on religious diversity has come to a head in Britain, in a British university where students have decided to throw the Bible out of their dorms. Well, students at Aberystwyth University, they feel the inclusion of the Holy Book in bedrooms is inappropriate in a multicultural environment. Almost 300 voted for the move. But the head of the university's Catholic Society doubts the decision will actually promote multiculturalism.
The idea that it's not really multicultural to have Bibles included in universities strikes me as rather strange because in a truly multicultural and a truly inclusive society, beliefs and values must be shared rather than segregated. Inclusion of Bibles would actually encourage multiculturalism rather than cause any problems for it. It's not a case of insulting people by having the text, the Bibles, in their halls. It's actually offering it to them, not forcing it upon them. Read this if you really want to understand what Christianity is about, and it's your choice.
Well, Aberystwyth University is just the latest in a string of cases when the Bible has fallen prey to multiculturalism across Europe. So one of Britain's largest hotel chains actually decided to remove all of its Bibles from its hotel rooms in order not to discriminate any religion at all. Well, the words Jesus and Christ have been banned as offensive by Marks and Spencer's on its online gift messages. The retailer later had to apologise. Ben Harris-Quinney, who is a founder of a conservative think tank, thinks such cases could mark some serious consequences for the country as a whole.
I think it's a great shame when traditions like this are abolished, particularly when it is abolished from so few votes being passed. But I don't think it is necessarily specific to the situation at the University of Aberystwyth. We've seen this sort of thing occurring across the country. Britain is a Christian nation. This country has its own church, the Church of England, and we are, by essentially metaphysical constitution, a Christian nation. Now, if we don't want to be a Christian nation anymore, then that is going to be a very serious change in our country, and it's going to mark a significant transition in the history.
And across the channel, a French court ordered a statue of Pope John Paul II to be removed, saying it violates the country's law on the separation of the church from the state. The same law also prompted a court in Nantes to ban Christmas nativity scenes from public places last year. Well, EU authorities also point at growing hostility and violence toward Christians in recent years that largely passes unnoticed by governments.
Christian school in Canada is worried about its freedom of religion after being told to stop teaching Bible verses that could be deemed offensive. The local authorities say passages in the Bible that denigrate or vilify one's sexual orientation should not be studied in class.
A Christian elementary school in Canada is being told it can't teach students scriptures that may be considered offensive. The board for the Alberta school has also made administrators take a Bible verse off their website and from a wall inside the school. The orders go against an agreement that allows Cornerstone Christian Academy to teach its basic tenets. The school receives state funding, and they say their freedom of religion and expression are being violated.
The school disagrees, however, saying the ban would violate its constitutional rights. The authorities are standing their ground, though, insisting that the potentially offensive passages should not be a part of the curriculum. Well, we got differing reactions to the issue.
Point of the whole, education system is to have discussions and to be able to say that this is text that is said here. Let's discuss it in an open form.
What the school board used is the word offense. They said you need to get rid of all offensive texts from the Bible and stop teaching this. And when it comes to that word, it can be interpreted in any way. I could be offended by the whole Bible, hence why some people in history burned the entire book because they found the entire thing offensive. Instead of responding to censorship with more censorship, we should respond with more free speech and just bring more education instead of trying to deny the opportunity to understand these texts to the children.
There's no way that we would be able to have these conversations if things were cut out or if we hid ourselves from things.
We need to talk about that. We're not going to be able to do that without free speech on the issue.
Story we first brought you yesterday. A Christian group says that it's been banned from using this square for an upcoming music festival, all because of its praise for Jesus. So today I spoke to a city councillor who also sits on the Young Dundas Management Board, and she claims the ban has nothing to do with religious discrimination. Them now saying that Young Dundas Square is anti-Christian, I'm saying is completely baseless. Praise the Lord, and Jehovah is our only God. It's words like these organizers of a Christian music festival believe is the reason why their event has been silenced at Young Dundas Square. The festival that's been going on for 5 years in the heart of our city is no longer being issued a permit. Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam, who sits on the square's management board, says there's no discrimination here. The issue is proselytizing, and it's forbidden in the contract. The behavior is defined as trying to persuade people to join a religion, cause, or group. Organizers know exactly why that we're asking them to not come back to the square. This has been clearly documented. And here's a prime example. A stone's throw from the city's venue on public property, a man preaches to people passing by with a Bible in hand. We rent the square to a number of religious-based organizations such as the Church of Scientology, Young Street Mission for their Easter Sunrise Festival. All of that takes place with these organizations following the rules. We first brought you this story yesterday. Organizers of the group Voices of the Nation claim this recording is of a phone call with a manager of Young Dundas Square, and it's their song lyrics being targeted.
Praising Jesus and praise the Lord, and there's no God like Jehovah, that type of thing, that's proselytizing.
But when we asked the city what exactly this group did to break the rules, we could not get a straight answer. What kind of behavior does the city consider proselytizing? I mean, if you're the definitions, I'm not going to speak specifically to what has transpired. Because people going around and getting people off the street trying to pull them in and give them stuff to read. So because I'm not at liberty to speak about those details, 3 years ago, similar wording on a controversial poster was allowed to hang just below the square in the Dundas subway station. It read, "There is no God but Allah. Discover Islam in 85 languages." Is that not considered similar to what the Christian group might be saying in their song? So the rules of engagement here at Young Dundas Square are contractual. So therefore, if anyone is renting the square, they have to follow the rules of the square. Now, Councillor Wong-Tam tells me that the group had been given 2 warnings about prohibited behavior before pulling the plug on the permit, and tonight organizers of Voices of the Nations tell me that they're still confused over what exactly...
Of all names, come on, the mayor can't hear you. Jesus!
Church. Thank you for mentioning that many Christian groups have sponsored Syrian families. My question is about a permit in the Dundas Square downtown. There was a multi-denominational Christian group that for the past 5 years has had a musical event with performances and so on, and it is multi-Christian groups coming together, and they've done that for 5 years. And this year, when they went to get the permit, I gather the woman who issues the permits, Natalie Bellman, refused it, saying they're proselytizing. I like to think that's not going to happen. I just ask you.
I'm so interested because the issue has been written up in the newspaper for about a week, and I make myself available to the media pretty well every day of the week, and nobody's ever asked me before. And I will tell you that I respectfully disagree with her decision, and I'll tell you why. I saw the basis upon which she said that, and there is a city policy that says you're not supposed to make people feel uncomfortable by having kind of what I'll call a hard sell on religion or any other kind of matter in public squares. And I understand that. But in this case, I saw some of the words that were quoted in the newspaper, and here's the analogy that I drew, and I never drew it in the press because no one ever asked me, but I drew it in my own office when I said, well, if I get asked, here's what I'm going to say. When we would never think of not allowing people to have a Christmas carol service at Young Dundas Square, and when people are getting up and singing the chorus to, what is it, Oh Come Let Us Adore Him, Oh Come All Ye Faithful, Oh Come Let Us Adore Him. The words were like that, praise the Lord, and whatever. And I say, well, so fine then, are we going to ban Christmas carol services too? I think this is a bit of how the world sort of has gone a bit overboard on some of these things, and I would say, look, if the organization understands that our policy is to make sure that while people have the freedom to talk about their spiritual beliefs as they wish, but don't get carried away with it in terms of abusing the use of a public square so that people feel uncomfortable. I don't happen to believe any of the words I saw constituted that, and so I would have said, let them have their meeting. They've had it for a number of years and nobody made a fuss about it. So I think they're up for some other kind of a hearing at some time in the future, and I hope that those people will reconsider and perhaps just say, look, we're counting on you to act responsibly, as I believe the vast majority of Torontonians would do. You're using a public square. Be respectful of others. That's the way we live in this city. So I hope they get their permit, and I hope that people understand that this is no different than a Christmas carol service. Oh, come, let us adore Him. Well, nobody was offended by that as far as I know.
Yeah. Praise the Lord.
So are you hoping, or will you actually intervene?
Well, no, it's not. It's the first time I've been asked about it,
right.
And I'm quite happy. I mean, I'm still learning about what's proper for me to call and intervene on and what isn't. And I gather they have some sort of a panel that advises on these things, and there are more rules, as I think you know, about when I could call somebody and when I can't. But I'm quite happy if it's proper for me to call and say, look, this is my view, but it's just my view. I'm not in a position, I think, as you know, to sort of instruct people to do very much. As the mayor, you can sort of express your view and hope that common sense prevails.
Yeah, you can have a notice of motion before council. See if your councillors will actually support you on that.
I just don't think these people pose any threat. I really don't.
Against Christians in the public square in Canada. Christians are being driven out, and it's not even in some sort of hidden form of discrimination. Officials all over Canada don't hide it. They're brazen about it. Let me give you an example. There is an organization called Voices of the Nations, and every year they like to have a Christian concert in Yonge and Dundas Square, a big public square in downtown Toronto, sort of our Canadian answer to Times Square. As you can see, it's the kind of venue that has lots of festivals and songs. This is what Voices of the Nations was like in years past. An amazing event, a public event with a Christian theme. There have been other themes in that same place by other groups, marijuana activists, gay activists, whatever. This was a Christian event. Well, this year, when Voices of the Nations applied for their permit for this year's concert, well, this is what they were told. I'm now going to play for you an audio recording of a phone call in which Voices of the Nations were told, no, you may not get your permit. Listen.
So I've already advised Peter that we're not going to be permitting you guys this year for next year because of the proselytizing on the square. And that's a big issue for us. I know that in the past years we've had discussions with you, or at least my predecessor did.
Oh, really?
Had meetings with Peter with regards to the proselytizing, and outlined very specifically what what's allowed and what is not allowed on the square, and that was not adhered to this year.
Oh, Natalie, sorry, just to clarify, did we prophesize this year at the event?
Yes.
We did?
Yes. Your performers did.
One of our performers did? Okay, in terms of prophesizing, what do you mean? Like, do we mean like speaking, like, or just singing? Or...
Well, it doesn't matter if it's speaking or singing. Either way, if you're praising Jesus and praise the Lord and there's no God like Jehovah, that type of thing, that's proselytizing. And given that, I think that you guys should be looking for a different venue because that's not in line with our policies.
Okay, so are you saying that, is this definite or...
No, this is definite. This is done.
So it's
you guys were given warnings after last year and spoken to, and nothing changed. And you were spoken to on site and weren't willing to make any changes during the proselytizing, so no, we can't risk putting you back up on stage again.
Can you imagine that? That's a government bureaucrat saying we can't risk having you sing a song about Jesus in a public square. I should tell you, I visit Yonge and Dundas Square from time to time. There is a permanent Muslim kiosk with the only purpose of proselytizing. They give out Qurans. They try to convert people to Islam. Yonge and Dundas Square's management, which is under the authority of the City of Toronto, has never kicked them out. This Christian choir, which you saw, looked like so much fun. They were denied explicitly because they mentioned Jesus. Well, this is where pro-Christian, pro-freedom of speech lawyers join the fray. And joining me now via Skype is a lawyer who we helped fundraise. And when I say we, I mean you, our viewers, helped crowdfund. It's Marty Moore of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Marty, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be with you, Ezra.
Well, you have been fighting this along with John Carpay, our friend from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Our viewers helped chip in some bucks to help cover your fees. And today you bring good news, finally. The city has blinked. Can you give us a report on how it happened and what happened?
Absolutely. Yeah, and thank you for your support. And we have excellent news yesterday. The Yonge and Dundas Board of Management reversed that decision that you just referenced to prohibit Voice of the Nations from using Yonge and Dundas Square, and instead has ordered that a permit be granted to Voices of the Nations to use Yonge and Dundas Square for their annual Christian concert on August 6, 2016.
We had the story last week of Prime Minister Trudeau, where he met with Steve Long and John and Carol Arnott from the great ministry Catch the Fire. And on Steve Long's Facebook, he posted a statement that Mr. Trudeau had told them to their face that Christians were the worst part of Canadian society. I mean, such a terrible, terrible statement to make. Well, Steve Long contacted me this week, and he wanted for me to make it clear to you that Catch the Fire Ministries is our Prime Minister. Why? Because we all must pray for our Prime Minister. Every Christian, every Canadian should pray for our Prime Minister. God tells us to pray for those who are in governance, and we need to pray for wisdom and caution. We need to pray that this man, Justin Trudeau, will not do harm to this country. But Steve Long wanted me to make it clear, and he says, and I quote, Steve Long, John Arnott, and Carol Arnott of Catch the Fire churches in Canada bless Prime Minister Trudeau. We believe that the best days of Canada are ahead, and that Mr. Trudeau will be a part of God's plan to achieve that. Yes, I agree that Canada may have very good days ahead. Canada is a great country. I believe the greatest country in the world. But I am afraid of what Mr. Trudeau is going to do. Unfortunately, Mr. Trudeau, in my opinion, is a soft leader, and he gets pushed around in different directions. And I'm afraid he's going to do a lot of damage. He is already promising, in his words, not mine, to legalize marijuana. That will damage this country. He is promising to change our relationship with Israel. That will damage our country. In fact, Stefan Dion has already spoken about Hezbollah and Hamas and how he will partner with them, and that Canada will no longer choose sides, but we will now be an honest broker. What kind of nonsense is this? How can you be an honest broker between a terrorist organization and a free democratic ally like Israel? God teaches us in Genesis 12:3 that I will bless those who bless Israel and curse those who curse Israel. I want Canada to be a blessed nation, not a cursed nation. So therefore, I want this country to bless Israel, so therefore it will be a blessed country. One of my biggest fears is euthanasia, the license to kill. The license to kill the infirmed, the least of these, the weakest people in our society. Yes, the Supreme Court has already struck it down. They're giving until February 2016 for now Justin Trudeau to write a new law, and I'm afraid he's not going to do it. Now, hopefully, you and I can contact him and others and MPs, and once they get into power, maybe they can come up with a solution to protect the innocent from being killed. And believe you me, they always give you the they shoot horses, don't they, type of argument. Put someone out of their misery. But the real danger of this is giving someone else the license to kill you. That can be misused, and I don't want to see anybody have their life taken because of the actions of this Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. There are many other issues that are coming. The biggest is the economy, and I believe what he is doing is damaging the economy, and he's going to bring massive taxes called carbon taxes, which is just simply a cash grab. You can't pay Justin Trudeau money and then he'll change the weather and stop the globe from warming or cooling or changing or whatever he says it's doing. You can't change the weather. Only God can do it, no matter how much tax you pay. It's nonsense. But those taxes can hurt the ability for a single mother to pay her rent, to buy food for her family. Those taxes can damage people in this country and cause them to lose jobs. That's what I am afraid of. So yes, Pastor Long, you have a great ministry, and yes, I join you in praying for our Prime Minister, but I'm not quite as hopeful as you are, and I am afraid that this Prime Minister is promising to do.
From sunny SoCal, and it was sunny today, into 32 million homes and counting. This is America Trends. I'm Barry Nussbaum, filling in tonight for Dr. Gina. Remember our poll question today: will the GOP leadership unite behind Trump? Yes, no? Vote in that poll at u2america.com or use the U2 America app, available now for Apple and Android devices. Download it now if you don't have it already. Joining us from another country, Vancouver, Canada, is Leslie Ann Stoffel. Leslie writes at The Real Clear Israel. Leslie, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's great to speak with you.
So good to have you. We've got all these questions about Canada paralleling the United States. Let's talk about your new Prime Minister to start with. So, Trudeau takes over the country, and fairly elected, and he's been making a lot of changes. And one of them you told me about this afternoon, where he's been seen praying in mosque to Mecca, dressed as a Muslim, and Muslims are saying that you must be a Muslim in order to do that within the mosque. Am I getting that right, Leslie?
Yes, you are actually. Before he was even elected, he was videotaped and photographed in a mosque actually nearby where I am, and I'm wondering, why is there an extremist mosque near me anyway? But there is. and he was visiting this mosque. He was dressed in Islamic garb, which, you know, the long gown and the hat, and there are photographs, I've seen them, and video of him kneeling on the ground in the mosque with the other people praying. He was up on the podium giving some kind of a talk, and this Tariq Fatah, who is a Muslim himself, Pakistani Muslim, who is considered a moderate Muslim here in Canada, he was the one that broke this story and wrote about it and said that only somebody who is actually a Muslim can do this. So we don't know. I mean, is this just a politician wanting to get votes? We don't know. But
well, has he converted?
We don't know. He hasn't come out to say that. But as Tariq Fatah said, that somebody who you have to be a convert or a Muslim, you know, born a Muslim, to do everything he was doing. So, and he's very, very sympathetic to the Islamic cause in our country, just like many other Western leaders now.
Maybe a related story, Leslie. Canada has now withdrawn its Air Force from the coalition that's been attacking ISIS. Why? Have they abandoned the fight?
Well, they haven't necessarily abandoned the fight. This is another issue that has the same parallels to other Western leaders. Trudeau does not want to appear as though he's fighting Islam, so he's pulled out our planes. But a good thing is he's helping the Kurdish people. He's sending humanitarian aid, but he wants to be connected to the UN and this old school role Canada played in the past as a peacekeeping country. Now, we're in war. Our leaders don't want to admit it, but we're in wartime, and this isn't a time for peacekeeping. And you can't speak and talk to genocidal maniacs who want to kill you. So this is what we're facing. He also does what Obama does. He calls them ISIL, you know, to get away from calling them the Islamic State. The whole thing, don't let it be known that the Islamic State is Islamic, and that whole thing.
Well, interesting.
That's what he does.
Now, Canada's been excluded from the planning of attacks on ISIS. Does it have to do with this pullout? What's behind that?
Well, we're thinking that it did. I keep track of our conservative media here. Ezra Levant's the Rebel media, which is one of the only ones that tells the truth anymore. And so when we pulled out, there was a meeting with all the countries that are in the coalition to do this, and our country was left out of this meeting. And so our defense minister stood up and said, oh, well, it was done at the last minute and they couldn't fit us in or something. And that wasn't true. I mean, we knew it was because of our backward role now, and perhaps they feel they can't trust us anymore. I don't know.
Does it have anything to do with the comments that Trudeau made about the Boston bombers and sort of the excuse he made for the terrorism that was perpetrated during the marathon?
It very well could, because you see, he has this mindset that, you know, just like
tell us what he said. Tell us what he said on that, Pam.
Well, he said that
Leslie.
the Boston bombers did this because they felt excluded, and you know, we just needed to do more to help them. And how much more could they have been helped? They, you know, so that's his mindset. He doesn't see these as jihadists sticking to a ideology from the Quran. He sees us as these poor little, you know, hard done by, unemployed, whatever, which is, you know, it's all just gaslighting and lies, because it keeps everybody, you know, not knowing what to do about this, because everybody's being lied to all the time.
So Canada has a big influx on Islamic refugees coming into Canada, just like the U.S. Is this part of Trudeau's change in policy? Are these people being vetted any more than the people here are being vetted? I hope for your sake they are.
They aren't, and I will say, before I get into that, I'm going to say this affects my friends in the U.S., because if we have all these unvetted people that are Islamic coming in here, they're gonna where's the first place they're going to head for? the U.S. border,
which
right?
is unprotected and unfenced and thousands of miles.
Exactly.
Now,
So
I understand.
Yeah, not vetted, and he sped up the process from 18 months to 3 months for like 10,000 of them, and he was rushing them in, and we were all saying, what is the big rush? Because they were actually not in camps. We were told they were in camps, and they weren't. They were actually living in apartments in Jordan, Turkey, and Lebanon, so they were in safe places. So this had something else behind it. This is part of the Hijra, the invasion into the West.
So I talked to you earlier, and you told me there's a movement in Canada to make Canada friends with Iran, the world's leading sponsor of terrorism. Did I hear you correctly? Who's behind this, if indeed that's true?
You did. I was just reading the article I had pulled up about that earlier, okay? We have a new appointed parliamentary secretary to our Minister of Foreign Affairs. He was, his name is Omar Al-Gabra, and he was appointed by Trudeau. Now, Trudeau also believes this. They believe that engaging with Iran, just like other Western countries, or he calls them our allies, are doing now, is going to help human rights. Here's what it says. Omar Al-Gabra, the Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs, defends the policy of Trudeau's government, which announced its plans to restore the diplomatic relations with Iran. And we had a debate in our parliament about this, and the Conservative government was asking, they're the state sponsor of terror, they sponsor Hezbollah, they sponsor Hamas, and actually this Omar Al-Gabra guy has been sympathetic to Hamas and Hezbollah in the past.
Leslie, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for being with us. I wish we had more time to hear about it. Up next, more America Trends.